Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss an autobiography of Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela, who was the first black president of South Africa in 1994. This is, as I told, is an autobiography where he would tell us about how he had worked and how his people means the community, the people of his community, the black people had worked to eradicate, to remove this discrimination between whites and blacks. That is, we call anti-apartheid movement. Right? So to know more about this, we will have the description from the chapter itself, from the autobiography itself. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. So, the autobiography has begun in the manner that the 10th May is marked as an important day over here. Because on this very day, the establishment of the anti-racial government, when there would be no discrimination between the whites and blacks. Right? So this ceremony, the inauguration ceremony, the installation ceremony would take place at sandstone amphitheatre formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. Quite important, this term, sandstone amphitheatre formed by the Union buildings in Pretoria. Very important here, because the question arises why this place was chosen for the inauguration ceremony. The reason is because earlier it had been the seat of white supremacy for decades. But today it was thronged by people of varied colors and races from different nations. So this date and this place carried a lot of importance over here. Right? So firstly, it is marked as installation and swearing in ceremony of South Africa's first democratic government. Now this also marked as an autumn day. He was accompanied by his daughter Zenani and the deputy president, followed with the first deputy president, second and the first deputy president. The oath ceremony took place, and after that it was the turn of the first president, the first black president, that is Nelson Mandela. He was for the oath ceremony over here. Now what he says, very important everyone, please mark it. He says, today all of us do by our presence here confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. Means after this disaster, after this discrimination based on color, based on race, today is the day when the humanity will be proud of it. We who were outlaws, who is this we over here? Black people who were outlaws not so long ago have today been given the rare privilege to be host to the nation of the world in our own soil, host for the different countries today. We thank all our distinguished international guests. Come on, again very important, distinguished international guests. Right? So here we are having the eminent leaders from throughout the world to mark the day. Right? Now they say that we have at last achieved our political emancipation. Political emancipation means political freedom. Freedom from any kind of restrictions. Clear? Next, never, never and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. And in his pledge, Nelson Mandela says that never ever it's going to happen that any other person or any other generation had to face this oppression. OPPRESSION, oppression. There will be two terms in this autobiography, oppression and oppressor. Right? Oppression means the domination. Oppressor is the one who is dominating, and the oppressed, the one who is being dominated. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign, God bless Africa. It's quite important line. Let freedom reign, God bless Africa. You all may underline this, mark it as important. Right? Next. In this, he tells about a splendid and show loyalty to democracy. Says that number of people, number of eminent leaders have gathered over here. Earlier, the people, the army men who were just captivating him, who were after him, and today they are saluting him. See, it is clearly marked here. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South Africa Defence Force and police, their chests bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. Now they all are being bedecked. Bedecked means there have been badges. We are putting the badges on their chest. They are being honored, their chests bedecked with ribbons and medals. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. Come on, children, try to understand. He says earlier it was like they arrested him. And what is the scenario today? That they are saluting him. It is again important to note these lines. The day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems. One was of Africa, that is the one for that black one, and the other by whites. So although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised, they would soon know the words by heart. Okay, so further, on the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. Now, Nelson Mandela, he says that as they have achieved the political emancipation, he is devoting himself to the well-being of his republic. He says that as marked here in this, look, the Anglo-Boer War and before my own birth, the white-skinned peoples of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of racial domination against the dark-skinned peoples of their own land. So this was the time, when this apartheid system began during the Anglo-Boer War. Okay, the structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhumane, cruel societies the world has ever known. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century and my own 8th decade as a man, that system had been overturned forever and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedoms of all peoples regardless of the color of their skin. Right? Further, that day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people. Every time when he says my people, it means the people of his community. He says that this freedom he had not achieved just in a single day. As we say, Rome was not built in a day. It has brought the sacrifice. It is just achieved after the sacrifice of number of people. Right? So I was not able to thank, and that they were not able to see what their sacrifices had brought. So he says that those people, as you could see here, the people marked over here, these, they were the people behind the success of this. They sacrificed their life. Okay. Further, the policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and that was it produced the Oliver Tambos, the Walter Sislers, the Chief Littlers, the Yusuf Dadus, and many more. So these are the extraordinary men who were known for their courage, wisdom, and generosity. Perhaps, very important, children, again this statement. Perhaps it requires what? It requires the depths of operation to create such heights of character. Would suggest everyone to mark it. Perhaps it requires such depths of operation to create such heights of character. So, would like to talk about it before I could proceed further. Nelson Mandela says that there is no doubt that one's character is tested in suffering as gold as tested in fire. The essential values of characters are revealed in a person only when he finds himself surrounded by insurmountable obstacles, torturous circumstances, and oppressive people. Or let me make it simpler by saying that more the pressure is given, the refined you come out to be. Like we read in the chapter Wind, remember that the more the harsh situations come to you, the stronger you grow. Right? So he says that decades of oppression and brutality did not break these people, these freedom fighters. On the other hand, oppression has been responsible in producing extraordinary men of courage, wisdom, and generosity. So, in short, when people face harshest oppression for long, they are no longer afraid of it. They become courageous by conquering that fear. They learn from their oppression and become wise and generous. So, this is how you are to explain the statement. Depths of oppression to create such heights of character. Further, my country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil. But I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. So he wants to say that the actual property, actual wealth of a country is with its people, not only with the materialistic things. Right? So he says he is giving all his I must say honor, right, and credit of this freedom to these freedom fighters mentioned in the previous page. In the lines he said, it is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. I learned, again important, these lines. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, not at all. That if you don't fear, then you are courageous. No. He says, but the triumph over it. If you win over your fear, you are courageous. As they say, डर के आगे जीत है. Right? He again says, the brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. So you have to overcome your fear. If you are not scared, it does not mean you are courageous. Clear? Further, in the next para, he continues tracing the history. He says, no one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart from its opposite. So he says, when a child is born, he does not know what is hate or what is love. The child does not know. But if you can teach an individual to hate, better teach how to love, because it is more natural. He points out saying that even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second. When he was imprisoned, he was tortured, but at that moment again he noticed, maybe just for a second, humanity in one of the guards, and that moved him. Man's goodness is a flame. These lines, mark it. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. Yes, just because of our surroundings, we may be rude to someone, we may be cruel to someone, or someone may be cruel to us, rude to us, but then, children, mark the words of Nelson Mandela. He says, man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never be extinguished. Okay, next, he continues saying regarding the obligations of a man. What? In life, every man has twin obligations. One for his family, for his immediate surroundings, and one for his people, one for his country. So he says that when he was born, he was not born to be hunger. He was not having a hunger to be free, because for him and for everyone, when we are born, we don't know, are we captivated or we are free, we are going to hate, we are going to love, we don't know anything. So it is further he says that he got to know that yes, he needs freedom. In this whole para, the para we could see here right now, in this whole para, he says that every man has twin obligations to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children. Right? And he has to serve both. Now he says that when he reached his youth age, he got to know that he was not even given an opportunity. I did not in the beginning choose to place he didn't even have the opportunity for selecting his own family, for having a choice of his family. Look, it is clearly told here. I was not born with a hunger to be free. I was born free. Free in every way that I could know. Free to run in the fields near my mother's hut. Free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village. Free to roast mealies under the stars and ride the broad backs of slow-moving bulls. So as long as I obeyed all this custom, he was just following the custom of his tribe. He was not troubled by the laws of man or God. But at the at the arrival of his youth, when he discovered that he and his men, his people, not having freedom for anything, there arise a hunger for freedom. When in Johannesburg, I yearned for the basic and honorable freedoms. Then he realized that he is not free. So further he joined African National Congress, and that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of his people. It was a desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self-respect that animated my life. He beautifully says that it was just the desire of his people that animated his life, that changed his life, that transformed a frightened young man into a bold one, that drove a law-abiding attorney to become a criminal, that turned a family-loving husband into a man without a home, that forced a life-loving man to live like a monk. I am no more virtuous or self-sacrificing than the next man. So this is how he says that his life was animated. He realized the need of freedom. I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. Freedom is indivisible. The chains on any one of my peoples were the chains on all of them. The chains on all of my people were the chains on me. Right? Next, he ends up saying that I knew that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. Very, very important. I knew that the oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. Why? Because a man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow-mindedness. The one who is dominating others is himself a slave. He is also not free. Right? I am not truly free if I am taking away someone else's freedom, just as surely as I am not free when my freedom is taken from me. So as I told in the beginning, that if we are taking away someone's freedom, even we are not free. The oppressor and the oppressed both are captivated. At the end, he says the oppressed and the oppressor are alike are robbed of their humanity. Now hope the explanation had helped you or will help you to understand what was anti-apartheid movement and how Nelson Mandela worked for his people. Now I would be telling you the vocabulary of this autobiography that would help you to make your answers effective. So the very first thing, as told in the explanation as well, the important part here is 10th May 1994, marked as Autumn Day. Then we say Sandstone Amphitheatre. Sandstone Amphitheatre, wherein you have to remember about this, because it was earlier the seat of white supremacy for a long time. It was the first time when the black people were allowed to come into this for the installation of democratic government. Then we have domination. The main part of this autobiography, domination and enslavement. This is the word you may use in your answers. Domination and enslavement of the black people. Right? Next, injustice and discrimination. This is what was faced by black people. injustice and discrimination. Next we have a very important point. On the day, on the occasion of inauguration, on the day of installation of democratic government, two national anthems were sung. One was of white power and the other was of black. Though none of them could remember, none of them was able to know the words of it, but Nelson Mandela said that with the passage of time they will learn their national anthem. And these two national anthems were sung with the reason to give an end to racial prejudice. Right? End to an racial prejudice. Then we have to confront fear. Then very important, oppressor and oppressed. Fine. Further we have hunger for freedom. Okay? According to Nelson Mandela, courage is not something that you say absence of fear. According to him, it is victory over fear, that is triumph over fear. So this is all about the vocabulary that we may use in our answers to make them more effective, and the explanation part, right? So if you feel that yes, this video is really worth or it proved to be helpful to you, then feel free to share with your near and dear ones. This was all about the autobiography of Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom.